Hello and welcome to the first live session of Crowdfund Birmingham that is all about planning your project. So hopefully you've arrived here today because you're interested in learning a little bit more about crowdfunding and Crowdfund Birmingham. And what we're going to do is take you through the basics, explain a little bit more about how crowdfunding works, how Crowdfund Birmingham works, and what you need to do to have a really solid plan for a great crowdfunding project. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to introduce us. We are here as Crowdfunder. So we're the UK's #1 rewards-based crowdfunding platform. I'm actually broadcasting today from head office, which is down in Cornwall. So we have around about 100 projects a day that come on and choose to crowdfund with us. And we've been going since, I think, around about 2013 now. So we're pretty experienced in the business. So you may have heard of crowdfunding and you may have heard of a few different types of crowdfunding. What we're specifically talking about today is rewards crowdfunding. You may have heard of equity, of things like lending money through crowdfunding. There are lots of different types, but we're really just going to focus on rewards. Now, how rewards crowdfunding works is really, really simple, and I'm going to explain it by this example here. So here we have Phil from Leeds Bread Co-op. Now, Phil needed around about £8,000 to buy the equipment for his bakery in order to open it up and sell bread to the local community. Now, he went to the bank. He wasn't actually able to secure a loan. Didn't have any sort of savings or any backup funds from family elsewhere that he could use. So he decided to turn to crowdfunding to raise the money that he needs to open that bakery. So he went live with a project on Crowdfunder, and over 49 days, he raised £8,690 from 144 different people in his local community. And what they got in return for their contributions, for their money, they got bread, they got cakes, they got different products from the bakery. So he gets the money in now, is able to open the bakery, and then delivers the rewards back to the community later. It's really easy. There's no equity given away. They don't own part of the company. They don't get any money back. It's a really simple, straight exchange. They get that set reward, that loaf of bread or whatever it was, in return for the money that they've contributed. Okay. So why do people run crowdfunding projects? Now, there's quite a few reasons. One of the obvious ones is, of course, to get the money that they need to make something happen. But actually, for a lot of projects, these other things are really, really important as well in sort of driving them to decide to do a crowdfunding project. Now, crowd validation, what we were just talking about with Phil and his bakery, really important, particularly if it's a new idea, it's a great way of finding out if your local community, if the people that you're targeting with your project are actually interested in it, you're actually interested in what it is that you're doing at all. So that's a really great one. If you raise the money that you need, you manage to get that support from that community, you know that you're probably onto a good thing. Definitely raises awareness as well, running a crowdfunding project. Whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's something that's already set up or something that is brand new, by going through the exercise of running a crowdfunding project, you'll find that you're shouting about it from the rooftops, the loudest and proudest you ever have done before. And of course, with that comes the collateral of having your profile really raised in that arena, in that local community. So that's a really great thing. People find that existing customers, people who are already involved with the project, actually really become advocates for the project. It's a really great way of kind of cementing those relationships. And those people that do support you through your crowdfunding project, we find that they actually tend to stay on board for the long haul because they've been a part of making the idea happen, of that initial stages of success. They tend to go on to be advocates for a really long time. It's also a great way of sort of proving the idea and unlocking future funding, so things like grants or loans that you might be looking at in the future, and of course unlocking extra funding through Crowdfund Birmingham. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you access that extra funding in just a moment. So Why do people pledge? That's a really good question. Actually, it's a really important question. People who are looking at running a crowdfunding project and they say, I don't understand, why are people going to give me money? And actually, there's two main reasons, and they do, of course, overlap. The first one being they believe in what you're doing. They think it's going to do some good in the world. It's worthwhile. It's worth contributing towards. The second one is that they want the reward. Whatever it is that you're offering in return for your money, that's what they want. And of course, that overlap there, that's what we call the sweet spot. That's where crowdfunding really works best, when you've got a really great idea that people can believe in and you're offering something really great in return. So just going back to the extra funding for a moment. So a little bit more about Crowdfund Birmingham. So you can find out all this information and you can read the full eligibility criteria and how you unlock the extra funding if you go to crowdfunder.co.uk/Birmingham. Really, really simple. You can find that page there and you can read all the information. In short, we've got £470,000 worth of grants. Each project can get up to £10,000, up to half of your target of what you're trying to raise via Crowdfunder. And that money is for community projects that improve health, well-being and independence in Birmingham. As I say, for more information on what exactly makes your project eligible for that funding, please do go over to that page and have a look at the full criteria. So this session is all about planning your project. It's about giving you a really strong foundation on which to build and create and go forward and raise the money that you need. So we're going to break it down into 3 steps kind of within this first stage of planning your project. Making a plan, identifying skills and making sure you've got those skills covered, and finding your crowd and nurturing that crowd, okay? So first up, planning. It sounds really obvious, but of course, if you have a plan, you're much more likely to sort of stay on track and raise the money that you need. Now, it's up to you how you want to do this. I would definitely advise using the PDF planning your project guide that's actually linked to from the Eventbrite that you signed up to watch this today, and you can also actually find it from that Crowdfund Birmingham page I mentioned a moment ago. So if you haven't read that yet, I definitely advise going away and reading through that before you continue. It's essentially a complete step-by-step guide to what you need to do to raise the money that you need. So we provide in there a checklist of the different things that you need to do. So for example, planning a video, shooting the footage, editing it, etc., to make it really easy. You might want to use a calendar to work it out, to plan what it is that you want to do. You might actually go and prefer to use an Excel spreadsheet, for example, or even just a list on a piece of paper. I actually really like to use paper and pen when I'm sort of making plans and that kind of thing. So it's up to you how you want to do it. And of course, your plan will evolve, it will build as you go through these stages. But definitely start working on that early and make sure you know what it is that you need to do. So the next part is looking at the skills that you need in order to have a successful crowdfund. Now, what we've done here is summarized 8 key areas. You might look at that and go, well, I definitely fill the project leader role. That's probably why you're here. Perhaps you're also an industry expert in whatever that might be. Perhaps you're also a great networker. So you can already fill 3 of those roles. You might then say, actually, do you know what? I don't know anything about social media. I could really do with some help there. So identify where your gaps are in your skill levels. Figure out who else you can bring on board to help you out with things. Things like making a video or writing the content to go on your project page. It might be that you know someone who's perfect for the job, that you know would be happy to help out and help you out in making that page really, really strong. Usually, the team behind a crowdfunding project is made up of sort of 2 to 5 people. It can be quite tricky going it solo with just you on your own. It can be quite hard going. So I would recommend having at least one other person that you can use to bounce ideas off, get them to have a look at what you're doing and give feedback. Really, really something worthwhile doing. And of course, these skills and a further explanation of what you need to do in building that team, again, is included in that first pack on planning your project. So next, we're moving on to identifying your crowd. Now, this, of course, is the really juicy bit. This is the important bit. This is the most important thing that you will do throughout your whole crowdfunding journey. This is what I call network mapping, okay? So best thing to do is start with the biggest piece of paper you can find. And the one that we've, this sort of template that we've provided in the pack, in the Crowdfund Birmingham pack, is a little bit of a template to get you started, okay? I've got a little example of one that I filled out just so you can see kind of how you might want to do it. So I've got my spider diagram here, and I've started to write different people on, different groups that I'm in contact with, profiles on Twitter, on LinkedIn, Facebook groups, all of that kind of thing. So I can sort of start to map out those first level connections. And then from there, what makes this really great is when you start to think, what are the second level connections? So these are the people that I know, but who do they know? Who can they help me to reach? And that's when this starts to get really strong. And you can see as well, I've started to highlight who I think my really key contacts are, your super backers and your influencers, which we'll talk about a little bit more in just a moment. So start with this template. Of course, you might have different groups that you want to add on for yourself, for your own project, different relevant groups. And actually, it might be that some of these are less relevant for you. But you'll find that this will be your absolute Bible going forwards. You'll refer to it for everything that you do, from writing content, figuring out rewards, and making a plan of how you're going to promote the project. So once you've figured out who your crowd are, again, something that's really key in these early stages, in this planning stage, is to nurture that crowd before going live. Don't wait until you're live to start doing these things. We always say about 90% of the work happens before you launch your project. So the time that you spend now in these early stages will really make that road so much smoother as you go forwards. Now, if you've already read through that first Crowdfund Birmingham pack on planning your project, you'll be familiar with the first two terms, super backers and influencers. These are people really worth highlighting on that network map and thinking about sort of who they are. Super backers are people who are going to contribute a larger amount of money to your campaign. Now, depending on your project, a large amount of money might mean £100. For another project, that large amount of money might mean 1,000 or even thousands. Start to think about who they might be. Is it an individual that you know, a high net worth individual? Is it an organisation, someone like Rotary, WI? Is it actually a local business, someone who might want to sponsor what you're doing and provide bigger chunks of funding in that way? Start those conversations early because they do take a little bit longer. Don't wait until your project's live. Tell them about the fact that this is coming. Influencers, again, can be really, really key in the success of a campaign. Influencers are people who you know, if you get them on board, then others will follow. They'll fall in line. It's the kind of people who are opinion leaders. That's really who we're talking about here. When you look through that network map, you'll start to think, really quickly who those people are. They kind of jump out at you because you know that they're the ones. If they lead, everyone else will follow. Get those people on board. Make them feel important. Find a way to involve them. A really good way, actually, is to ask for their opinion, ask for their contribution as you're going through and doing things like creating your page or coming up with reward ideas. Ask people for their thoughts. People love to give an opinion. So if you make them feel involved in the process, you'll probably have them on board for the long haul. Of course, those other groups, personal contacts, any existing supporters that you have, really great to get those guys on board early as well. If they've already supported you, they're already a part of your life or part of your project, make them feel valued. Don't let them kind of hear about it later from other people when actually they've been along, for the ride for a while. Let those guys know about it first. They should be kind of the first people you start talking to. Get your social media profiles in good shape. If you don't have a social media profile set up for your project, don't wait until you go live to do that. Actually, if you've got one set up but you haven't touched it in a while, give it a new lease of life. Get some new images on there, get some new content on there. Invite all your friends to like that page. Have a go at driving some interest in your profiles. You'll find that it's so key in driving pledges once you're live, particularly Facebook, something that we'll come on to in one of the later sessions. So get them in good shape now. Research some relevant groups. Obviously, depending on what your project is, that may vary massively. If you're from a sports club, have a look at other clubs who are around, or perhaps supporters clubs or people who have things in common. If it's a community group, what other kind of groups are around? Are there other local organisations who are doing similar things, who share a similar ethos? Get out there and network with local people, meet people, take business cards, find out who everyone is and what their connections are. It will definitely be useful later. And same sort of thing with your website. Get your website in good shape. Start to drive some sign-ups to your email mailing list if you have one. If you don't have a website, that's absolutely fine. If you like to drive people through Facebook or whatever, no problem. Just make sure it's in good shape and ready for you to go live. So now you're through the planning stage. If you've completed that first booklet, you're ready to go. You're ready to add your project, which is really the most important step on this crowdfunding journey. Get your project added, have a little explore around the site, see how it works, see what information you need to add, see what it looks like. Anything that you add when you're creating a project can all be deleted, chopped, changed, completely edited and redone later. There's no problem. No one can see anything that you do until your project goes live. If you have any questions about anything that we've covered today, there's a couple of ways you can get in touch. If you're on Twitter, you can tweet directly to me any short, sharp, quick questions. I'm at Sammy Morger. You can find me there. If you have any other questions, anything to do with crowdfunding, Crowdfund Birmingham, the funding, anything at all, you can also email into our customer support team and you can reach them at support@crowdfunder.co.uk. Our next session is going to be on Wednesday the 5th of April at 4 p.m. Do make sure you come along. It'll be the same sort of length as this one. It'll be really short. Make sure that you've read the second part of the pack, which is included again on that Eventbrite you signed up to before coming along. You'll find that really, really useful. So hopefully you've now got a really good idea about what you need to do to get through the planning stage and ready to start creating your project. Looking forward to seeing you all at the next session. Thanks very much.